Imagine a scenario of wickedness and depravity where humans seek to have relations with angels and daughters become pregnant by their own fathers. Today, we will explore the story of Lot, a man whose choices placed him at the epicenter of extraordinary events. Prepare to witness the judgment and wrath of God, culminating in the destruction of a civilization. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us until the end of this story. The first accounts of Lot in the Bible are recorded in the book of Genesis, starting in chapter 11. The story of Lot, a biblical figure, begins with uncertainty about the origin and meaning of his name. Some scholars suggest that it may represent the idea of a veil, indicating the importance of presenting oneself well before others. According to the Bible, after his father's death, Lot left Ur of the Chaldeans and traveled to Haran with his grandfather Terah, his uncle Abraham, and Sarai. When Abraham left Haran after Terah's death, Lot followed him to Canaan. During a period of great famine in Canaan, Lot and Abraham went down to Egypt and settled there. However, after being deceived, the Pharaoh of Egypt expelled Abraham and Sarai, causing Lot to return with them to Canaan. During this period, both Abraham and Lot prospered significantly. Their herds grew to the point that the region could no longer accommodate them both, leading to disputes between their shepherds. The contrast between Abraham and Lot in the biblical narrative is primarily evidenced by the fundamental choices they make when faced with opportunities and challenges on their journeys. Abraham is characterized by his obedience and trust in God's promises, which is reflected in how he conducts his life. His faith guides his choices, and he becomes a notable example of an individual who places divine will above his own earthly interests. Remember the episode of the three mysterious visitors in Mamre. One day, Abraham is sitting at the entrance of his tent under the oaks of Mamre when he suddenly notices the presence of three men standing before him. The intensity of the account suggests that these visitors have an extraordinary nature, as Abraham quickly prostrates himself in reverence before them. At this moment, he demonstrates remarkable hospitality, inviting them to stay and rest while he offers them water to wash their feet and food to restore their strength. During this encounter, Abraham and Sarah receive a surprising and transformative news. One of the visitors reveals that at the same time the following year, Sarah, though already old, would have a son. This divine promise aligns with the earlier one, where God assured Abraham of numerous descendants comparable to the stars in the sky. The story of the visit to Mamre not only highlights Abraham's exemplary hospitality, but also reveals the intimate and personal nature of the relationship between God and his faithful servant. On the other hand, Lot seemed to be increasingly influenced by the temptations of the material world and seduced by seemingly prosperous opportunities. For these reasons, Abraham and Lot decided to separate. On the occasion of the separation, Abraham generously allowed Lot to choose first the land he would occupy. Abraham's decision to separate from Lot to preserve harmony and avoid conflicts highlights the spiritual maturity of this patriarch, who values peace and communion with God above material disputes. Lot chose the green plains of the Jordan near the Dead Sea, close to Sodom. He was attracted by the beauty and fertility of the region, allowing himself to be influenced by purely material considerations. This decision, while understandable from a human perspective, highlights Lot's vulnerability to the seductions of the world in contrast to Abraham's spiritual firmness. After the separation, Lot settled in Sodom, where he quickly became involved in local affairs and appeared to have achieved a prominent social position. However, the Bible describes the inhabitants of Sodom as extremely wicked, a situation that deeply distressed Lot. The Apostle Peter in the New Testament describes how Lot was daily tormented by the wickedness he witnessed in the city. While Lot was in Sodom, a battle occurred in which Mesopotamian kings defeated the cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Zoar. In this conflict, all the goods of Sodom were plundered, and many inhabitants, including Lot, were captured. Informed of the occurrence, Abraham organized a rescue force that, in a night battle, defeated the enemy army and recovered Lot's goods and family. It was in this episode that Abraham met Melchizedek. Despite the war involving Sodom, Lot did not leave the city, and his story continues in the Bible. The narrative continues with the visit of angels to Sodom. The city remained engulfed in chaos and depravity. The divine presence in the corrupt city highlights God's concern for human wickedness. This situation resonates with the message of Jeremiah 23, verse 24, which emphasizes that God is aware of the cries resulting from injustice. The divine intervention in human affairs reflects God's commitment to righteousness and his willingness to act in the face of wickedness. The Lord declares his intention to investigate the sins of Sodom, revealing his justice and rejection of iniquity. However, faced with such disappointment, God decides to destroy the city. The biblical narrative highlights the depravity of Sodom's inhabitants, especially evident in how they received the Lord's angels. The men of Sodom, in their sinful conduct, desired to have sexual relations with the angels, a behavior that was one of the main reasons for the city's destruction. During this turmoil, Lot tried to calm the situation controversially by offering his daughters to the men of the city, reflecting his weakness and the harmful effects of the city on him. At this moment, the Bible delves into Abraham's courageous intercession before the Lord, revealing a genuine search for divine understanding and justice. Aware of the imminent destruction of Sodom, Abraham dares to question God about the possibility of sparing the righteous along with the wicked. This audacious dialogue resonates with the exhortation in James chapter 5, verse 16, which highlights that the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. The narrative proceeds with the bold negotiation between Abraham and God, in which Abraham dares to question the possibility of sparing the city for the sake of the righteous. Psalm 86, verse 15 reflects this context, proclaiming, "But you, Lord, are a compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness." This reflection underscores God's willingness to hear the pleas of his servants and his readiness to act with compassion in response to fervent intercession. The story reveals not only God's compassion but also the importance of persistence in the pursuit of justice and mercy. When God decided to destroy the cities of the plain, including Sodom and Gomorrah, the Bible recounts a remarkable event. Before the destruction of Sodom, Lot and his family were rescued by two angels sent by the Lord. This deliverance occurred thanks to divine mercy and God's commitment to the covenant established with Abraham. Faced with the insistence of Sodom's inhabitants to capture the angels, they eventually struck the men with blindness. The angels then ordered Lot to take his entire family out of the condemned city. Lot hesitated to leave Sodom, and the angels had to forcefully lead him out of the city. During the escape, the family was warned not to look back. However, Lot's wife disobeyed this order and was turned into a pillar of salt. The transformation of Lot's wife into a pillar of salt is a dramatic representation of the consequences of disregarding God's instructions. Lot, though spared from imminent destruction, was not exempt from the moral consequences of his choices. His decision to live near Sodom exposed his family to a corrosive environment, and the story reveals Lot's struggle to maintain his moral integrity amidst surrounding corruption. Lot's struggle resonates with contemporary challenges faced by Christians who often find themselves in societies permeated by values opposed to biblical teachings. After leaving Sodom, Lot and his two daughters went to a small town. Fearing for their lives, they sought refuge in a cave in a mountainous region, demonstrating hesitation to fully trust in God's plan. This attitude contrasts with the unwavering trust Abraham demonstrated during his journey, even in the face of uncertainties and challenges. Lot's decision to seek refuge in a cave symbolizes, in a way, the human tendency to seek isolation when confronted with adversity. The cave may represent not only a physical shelter but also a state of emotional and spiritual reclusion. This raises the question of how traumatic experiences can impact a person's ability to fully engage in life and relationships. It was in this place that a terrible event occurred. Fearing for their safety, Lot's daughters were concerned about preserving the family's lineage. Feeling isolated and without the prospect of finding husbands, they devised a plan. At one point, Lot's daughters got their father drunk, and motivated by a lack of understanding of moral norms and ethics, each lay with Lot on successive nights, seeking to generate offspring. From this incestuous union, Moab and Ben-Ami were born, who became the ancestors of the Moabites and Ammonites, respectively. These nations caused various problems for the Israelites throughout biblical history. The narrative about Lot in the Bible continues to highlight his complex and controversial relationship with his daughters after the events in Sodom. However, after this point, Lot's story remains without further details. It is not known for sure if he managed to rebuild his life or if he ended his days in the cave in the mountains where the events with his daughters took place. It is important to note that the Apostle Peter mentions Lot in his second epistle, specifically in chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. This passage is yet another reference to the episode of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the New Testament, Jesus mentions Lot in the Gospel of Luke in an apocalyptic context, recalling the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot's salvation. This account serves as a reminder for the end times, emphasizing the importance of readiness and obedience to God. The biblical account shows that Lot was a man who had the chance to learn from Abraham, known as the father of faith. However, unlike his uncle Abraham, Lot did not guide himself by faith but by his own perceptions and desires. This personal approach brought many afflictions and left deep scars on his family. Lot's story serves as an example of the consequences of choices guided more by personal views than by faith and divine guidance. Valuable lessons for contemporary Christian life emerge from this account. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah underscores the importance of making ethical choices, even when facing cultural pressures to the contrary. Paul, in his letter to the Romans, exhorts believers not to conform to the patterns of this world, but to be transformed by the renewing of their minds. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. This passage demonstrates the need for contemporary Christians to stand firm in their faith and moral values, regardless of external influences. Lot's story inspires reflection on the impact of our choices and the importance of maintaining integrity and faith, even in the face of adverse circumstances. The account of Lot invites believers to examine their own lives, ensuring that their decisions align with divine guidance rather than personal desires or societal pressures. By doing so, one can avoid the pitfalls that befell Lot and instead live a life that honors God and upholds his principles. In conclusion, the story of Lot is a compelling narrative that highlights the tension between faith and personal desires, the consequences of our choices, and the enduring mercy and justice of God. As we reflect on Lot's experiences, let us strive to make choices that reflect our faith and commitment to God's will, trusting in His guidance and remaining steadfast in our moral convictions. I hope the story of Lot can inspire us. Leave your comments with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click on one of the 2 videos that will appear on the screen to continue watching us. Hugs, and may God be with you.